Esiku dede àsìkò yìí. Hey guys, it's Adironke again. Today I'd like to talk about another metaphorical statement, another metaphor, if you will. And the title of this one is Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. The full metaphor, the full metaphorical statement is Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Ó ń bí ọmọbìnrin jọ. Ẹyẹ wá ń yí lu ẹyẹ. Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Ó ń bí ọmọbìnrin jọ. Ẹyẹ wá ń yí lu ẹyẹ. Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Ó ń bí ọmọbìnrin jọ. Ẹyẹ wá ń yí lu ẹyẹ. You could say it in a different way. You could say Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Ó fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bóbìnrin. Ẹyẹ wá ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ. It's still the same statement. It's just people say it in different ways. They just replace one word or two with a different one, but it would still mean the exact same thing. Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Ó fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin. Ẹyẹ wá ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ. Kàkà sàn lára ìyá àjẹ́. Ó fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bóbìnrin. Ẹyẹ wá ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ. This metaphor, if you listen closely, or if you've ever come across the word àjẹ́, whether in your study of, let's say, any of the Ifa texts, you would immediately know that this metaphor is referencing witches. There's a mention of a witch in this metaphor. Well, ìyá àjẹ́, even ìyá, you think of a female, so you know that it might have something to do with a woman. And if you know what àjẹ́ is, it might have something to do with witches, with witchcraft. Now, how you feel about witches would obviously be dependent on, let's say, your parents and what part of the world you grew up, and the kind of movies that you watch. You know, the media plays a lot of even the European and the Yoruba movies and all that. They play a major role in how people view witches and what they do. Whether you're fascinated with, the idea of witchcraft, take a step back, or whether you have an extreme disgust for it, take a step back and think, what have I ever had an encounter with a witch? What is this idea of a witch based on? Maybe movies like The Wizard of Oz or Hansel and Gretel, or movies that I read as a kid, or like, how on earth were these views of mine formed? Many of us don't do that with many things. So when you look up witch, Google tells you that it's the name of a woman thought to have magic powers, especially evil ones, popularly depicted as wearing a black cloak and pointed at and flying on a broomstick. So something like this. And whether you're referring to European witches or you're referring to even Yoruba witches, the name witch is problematic when you're referring to àwọn àgbàlagbà, but I'll get to that because it's inaccurate. It's super inaccurate. Even the mainstream idea of who a witch is, as at now, is pretty wrong. Witches astral travel, yes, but not necessarily on a broomstick. Like, this is all fiction, and many of the witches that I've come across are actually really pretty. They don't have long jaws and long noses, and they have the prettiest nails and the most beautiful hair. So back when there was a lot of witch hunting, like even in Europe and other parts of the world, and many people who have now reincarnated in this lifetime when they do their past life regressions just to get an idea of who they were, they tell you that life wasn't really easy for them when they were witches in whatever lifetime that they came from. Some were burnt, some were in prison, some were persecuted, some were outright killed with perhaps a sword or something. My point exactly is that the world has been very fascinated with the idea of witches and witchcraft for a long time, and not necessarily in the positive sense. Usually there's a negative outlook to it, and so it reflects in how the witches are portrayed in the media and in storybooks and all that. Essentially, when you think of the term witch in general, especially in the European sense, there are similarities and differences between the Yoruba people's idea of who a witch is and differences. So as far as similarities is concerned, the Yoruba witch is able to not only shapeshift, but also send animals on errands. Some are able to shapeshift, some not necessarily. I guess there are levels to witchcraft as well. Some, they can telepathically send a bird on an errand. I guess witchcraft in both the European sense and the traditional Yoruba sense, they accord animals, especially certain birds, to the craft. So I guess that would be a similarity. The idea that they can shapeshift, the idea that they can travel to a different realm, not necessarily on a broom. It's called astral travel, and you don't have to be a witch to astral travel. And the idea that birds can serve them, so they can telepathically communicate with certain animals, birds specifically, and send them on errands. Now, differences. The differences, the Yoruba witch is not necessarily, and I guess any witch at all, especially the modern witch, it's not necessarily a recluse, doesn't necessarily live in a forest somewhere waiting for some children to wander in so she can cook and eat them. No, that's like, is that not cannibalism or something? That is not witchcraft. There's a lot of misconception. So there's this general idea that there's a good witch and there's a bad witch. We think of witches in that sense too, that they are witches that are good and they are those ones are they delight in doing evil much more than they delight in doing good. However, that too, I guess maybe that has a European influence. I mean, that's true, but in general, we tend to think of witches as, mothers that can either bless or can discipline. To the Yoruba people, yes, there's Ajefufu and yes, there's Ajedudu, and there are some that delight in doing bad much more than they delight in doing good, and there are some that delight in doing good. They are the protectors much more than the evildoers. But in the general sense, we also think of witches in general as being able to, as women who are able to, grandmothers, great mothers who are able to bless and also discipline. The term witch is problematic for describing the Awon because it kind of already, before you even know what they do or who they are, you have a misconstrued idea, of their position. When we think of the Yoruba witches, especially in Ifa spirituality, we don't think of them as these recluses, these hermits that stay in the forest and look for children to cook and eat, and no, we think of them as spiritual matriarchs. So the presence of witches in Ifa spirituality, even, and in general, there's a feminist aspect to it, in the sense that even men pay homage to these great mothers, these women with powers. And so, there's a recognition of spiritual power, in relation to the woman, and more specifically in relation to these women. I'm going to use the term witch, but it's problematic. But I'm going to use it anyway. So they're spiritual matriarchs, and they arouse different emotions in people, from fear to disdain to admiration and to respect. Many religions, well, not many. How many do we even have that are the major religions in Nigeria? Islam and Christianity. Both religions, they advertise the ability to overpower witches and like there's a lot of mention of witches and wizards in prayers and in spiritual battles and all sorts. So there's this obsession plus fear of them, but also this desire to overcome them for some reason, like to overpower them. Just all witches and wizards, just overpower them, let them die, kind of thing. It's still present in the modern day religions, especially the ones in Nigeria. With the way the Yoruba people see them, they are like, even for the priest or someone who practices Ifa spirituality, there's this underlying fear of this women, this matriarchs. And so, like I said, it has a feminist aspect. There's a desire to please them. There's an acknowledgement of the fact that these women have power, and because they have power, they have some kind of authority to do and undo certain things. With priests, spiritual people, everybody, not necessarily everybody, but in general, they are seen as people who are to be pleased. If you get in their good books, good for you. If not, then they can be appeased, so to speak. They also serve as, women, more particularly, who provide checks and balances to other people's powers. So from kings, many kings, if they have the support of these women, then, they're good to go, spiritually speaking, because they serve as defenders. You'll be quite surprised that in that sense, we see them as protectors of even kings, in some sense. But they could also punish. They could also check. They could also say, look, this wasn't the agreement. You're doing something that you were not supposed to do. Check yourself.
See, when you do clownery, the clown comes back to bite.
So in that way, there's a matriarchy thing to it, and also a feminist thing to it. And I'm trying not to get into detail, because this is not what the video is about. But there's one thing that I'm going to mention. Even in their praises, the way they are praised, incites fear sometimes, or just leaves you mesmerized, or even incites a sense of wonder. For example, some are giving when their praises are sung, essentially, they use the term Arugba Shoma Bale. For example, someone who can tie 200 wrappers. The Iro is what we call it. The kind of wrapper that you tie around your waist. The clothing that you tie around your waist. So in the praise, it said that they can tie 200 and it won't touch the ground. This is sort of referencing their ability to levitate and to astral travel. Also, other phrases like Ajapa Jori, Ajenkan Wolo Wolo Mabi, it incites fear in you. I wouldn't say fear, it's almost like not fear, not necessarily in the negative sense, but that kind of, when you say fear of God, you're not necessarily saying, oh, fear, you're shivering kind of thing. That kind of fear, that reverence. So with the Ajapa jury, it says that they can, literally just means that they can eat body parts. They can eat intestines and not be nauseated and not feel the need to vomit. Like, it's as easy as pie for them to do. So I'm going to leave it here because I want to structure the lesson when I'm in fact going to talk about witches and the roles that they play, not only to the matriarchy. It's much greater than, oh, this witch somewhere casting a spell, maybe casting a love spell. It's Yoruba witches can't relate. That's like, it's childish. They serve a much bigger purpose in the society in general and in spirituality. It's not just those jalaruru kwekwe, cast a spell or two. What other spells? Common spells for people to, but not those ones are for children. These are the great mothers, so they serve a much greater. I mean, there are small witches and there are grand witches. Also, we recognize that Ajeorunwa, which means they are earthly witches and they are heavenly witches. It's a much bigger concept that I can possibly talk about at once. So I'm going to structure that lesson and talk about it when the time is right. There are some things that I just saying even before I make the video, that there are some things that I'm not going to know. There are some things that you don't know until you're like, an awo or an initiate into a particular. And also there are different kinds of witches. It's not just, every witch following the same curriculum or the same practice. There are different means, there are different groups, there are different ways of doing things. And to know a specific one in great detail, you kind of had to join. Let me talk about what this video is about, because I'm drifting, but when the time is right, I'll talk about it. I was saying earlier that there are different ways of saying it. You could say Kakaako san Lara yaje, ó fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin, ẹyẹ wá ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ. You can also say it this way: Kakaako san Lara yaje, ó ń bí ọmọ obìnrin jọ, ẹyẹ wá ń yí lu ẹyẹ. So ẹyẹ ń yí lu ẹyẹ, ẹyẹ ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ, still the same thing. If you say it this way, Kakaako san Lara yaje, ó ń bí ọmọ obìnrin jọ, ẹyẹ wá ń yí lu ẹyẹ. This is what it means. The word for word transliteration is this: Kaka is instead, Kaka, instead of or instead. Kaka, instead. Ko is a combination of two words. Ki o. Ki is that, in a sense, depending on the context. Ki, instead of, instead that. Kaka ki, instead of, instead that. Ki is that. O is she or it. It can be he, it can be she, it can be it. Here I put it, but it can be any of those three words. Son. When you use son in a context, you're using it in the context of something becoming abated, something losing its intensity. If you say son, you're saying the person's let's say the person has something wrong with your mental health. You're saying that they're getting better. It's becoming abated. There are some things that there's some irrational things that they don't do anymore. It's not that they're completely sane now, but their mental health is getting better. So, son, become abated. When you say son, on the other hand, son is in reference to wounds. A wound is becoming healed. You use that for wounds. You use son for like a situation, or let's say a non-physical, non-seeable illness. Son is for like, physical wounds that you can see. So maybe, fractures or wounds or something like that. Son is for the ones that you can't see, for situations So become abated. Lara is a combination of two words. Ni, ara. Ni is in. Ni is in. Ni is in. Ara is body. Ara in essence is body. Ara in essence is body. So ara is body. Iya, many people already know what iya is, mother. Aje is witch. Aje is witch. I guess witch is the... I'm not necessarily using the word witch because I want to, but for lack of a better word. Because when you think witch, there's a picture that you have that is not necessarily all that there is to the Yoruba Aje. And Aje is, when you really look into the name itself, Aje. Aje is to answer. Aje is someone that you call and answers, right? Je is to answer. Aje, someone who, when you call, answers. So when I make the video, I will talk about this. But Aje, which, or, because we're talking about which, and I said or can be he, she, or it would be she in this case. But he, she, or it is o. You know, can be she, can be it's she in this context because we're talking about the mother witch. When you include in a sentence, it's equivalent to is. So it's in the present tense, something that is happening or continually happens. Be is to give birth to. Give birth to. Be, or more, for example, is give birth to children, of course. In most cases, you give birth to children, whether you are an animal or you are human. Omo is children. Omo is children or child. Actually, Omo in general is children, but one child. Omo kan. Omo child or children, depending on the context. Omo child or children. Obinrin is female. Obinrin is female. Jo. When you say jo, you are saying, you're sort of inferring together, one after the other. You know, Dalek jo is sweep the floor, like together, put the dirt together, gather them from different parts of the house, for example, and put them together. When you use it in this context, usually you won't use it in the positive sense. Jo is together or one after the other. One after the other. Jo. Eye is bird. Eye is bird. Wa is then. Then. Wa can also become. But in this, it depends on the... There are some Yoruba words that have 2-3 meanings, you know. Wa is one of them. It can be them, depending on the context. And when you're talking to someone and you say wa, you're saying come. Like I said, is. It's the Yoruba people's equivalent of is or are. Yi is roll. Yi is roll. Lu is on or against. On or against. Eye is bird. So Kakaako san Lara yaje. Ó fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin jọ. Or fi, what was this? What did I say earlier? I said ó bí ọmọ obìnrin jọ. Yes. Ó bí ọmọ obìnrin jọ. Eye wá ń yí lu eye. The transliteration of that is, instant that he becomes abated in the body of the witch mother, she's given birth to female children one after the other. Bird is rolling against the bird. You may not understand exactly what that is. That is just a rough transliteration. When you put those words together and try to make a sentence out of it, of course it doesn't make any sense. So the translation would be, instead of the witch's witchcraft to become abated, she's birthing female children one after the other. She's making more witches. Instead of the witch's witchcraft to become abated, she's birthing female children one after the other. She's making more witches. Now, let me talk about a different way of saying this, the metaphorical statement, and I would talk about this. I'll talk about this translation. I'll get there. So, like I said earlier, you could say Kàkà Lara yaje ó fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin. Ẹyẹ wá ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ. It's the exact same thing. Kaka is instead ki o are the two words that combine to form ko, that its son is become abated. Lara in the body of Yaje, the witch, mother witch. Ofi, O is she, O is she or it. In this case, like I said earlier, because we're talking about the witch, we're using she. Fi is use. Gbogbo is all. Gbogbo is all. Omo is children. Omo is children. Re is tie. Tire is the literally the full word. Tire. Ours. A person's. So Ofi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀, all our children. B is give birth to. Obinrin is female. Ẹyẹ is bird. One. Then is Shubu is fall. Fall. Lu is on or against. Ẹyẹ is bird. The transliteration of that one too would be, instead that it becomes abated in the body of the witch mother, she used all her children to birth females. Bird is then falling on or against bird. So the Yoruba language is quite interesting. When you say "oh fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin," it's almost like you're saying all the how do I put this? Ofi, when you use all your childbearing graces to give birth to female, it's almost like you're saying the woman has some kind of control over the gender of her children. Ofi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin. She used all her children to give birth to females. It's almost like you're inferring that maybe she had some kind of control over it. So it's a beautiful language. It's just kind of inferring that perhaps knowingly the witch is giving birth to females for a reason, Ofi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin, ẹyẹ wá ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ. When you say bird is falling on or against bird, think of birds in a poultry. When there are too many of them, they fall on one another. They don't have breathing space. So, sort of the Yoruba people's poetic way of saying, metaphorical way of saying, too many witches, one bird against the one, too many witches anyway, an abundance of them, bird on bird, so many of them. It's an interesting metaphorical, or you could even say poetic way of saying that too many, one yilura one be, too many of them. Instead of the witch's witchcraft to become abated, she birthed all female children. She made more witches. Kàkà ó sàn lára ìyájẹ́, ó fi gbogbo ọmọ rẹ̀ bí obìnrin, ẹyẹ wá ń ṣubú lu ẹyẹ. So already, I don't even have to say much. Already you can tell that however this metaphorical statement came to be, you can tell that it has an anti-witch inference to it. You could almost, it's so obvious that it has an underlying anti-witch theme to it. Instead of the witch to step back, instead of the witch to step back, to step away from witchcraft, she's doing more witchcraft, and she's given birth to children that would become witches. Eleye is another name for witches. Eleye, right? And okay, when I was going to say, Osameji tells us more about witches and how they came to be, and how heavenly witches sort of some heavenly witches became earthly witches, and how witchcraft sort of grew from that. But when I make the video, I'll talk about it with certain people's permission, and when I know exactly what I will be talking about. But you can already tell that this is anti-witch. Instead of the witch to stop practicing witchcraft, she's yeah. I was going to say earlier that I was saving that for the video, but I should probably say it now. The Yoruba people, some Yoruba people, I shouldn't say the Yoruba people, some Yoruba people believe that, if a woman is a witch and she has a daughter, when she's to leave the group, she may replace herself with one of her daughters, or maybe even all her daughters, especially if she has some kind of position in the group. I'm trying to avoid using the word coven. In the group. If you ever hear the term "ogbeye fún ọmọ ẹ̀," she gave her child the bird. When it is said of a woman, they're just saying that the woman made her child a witch as well. And yet witchcraft is often symbolized with the bird. And it has a lot to do with the energy of hair and levitation and astral. Hair is one of the most important elements to the witch, for obvious reasons. Instead of the witch's witchcraft to become a beta, she birthed off female children. She made more witches. This metaphorical statement to begin with is not often said in the positive sense. When it is said about a person's behavior, it means that instead of reducing the amount of trouble that the person is causing, they are causing more trouble or creating avenues for more trouble. They are Kakaako, Lara. Instead of them to desist from it, to stop doing it, they are creating more of it. When it is said about a situation, it means instead of subsiding, particularly if it is a terrible or harmful situation, most often when it is, the matter is increasing in intensity or developing in ways that could increase the intensity. So it is getting worse. It's becoming more unpleasant. You don't ever use this metaphorical statement to describe something positive, something that is getting better. It's usually something that is getting worse, or a person's behavior that is getting worse. So right off the bat, you can tell that there's a negative view. Like I was saying earlier, there are good and bad views of the witch, right? Some see them as a good force, especially women, and the role that they play for women and men in power. Many kings and many priests and many priestesses or whatever have many grandmothers and great mothers, whether they are witches or not. They have a very great level of reverence for these women, this Ìyá Òṣòròmọ̀ngà. Here you're referring to the witch as if she does evil. Essentially, everybody does evil, especially when you have the power to do evil. Then you really do that evil, especially when you have some kind of ability to manifest that evil, and that is what differentiates witches from regular. Everybody does evil, does something wrong, and does something right. But when you have the power to do more good than the average person, or more havoc than the average person, then you sort of get some kind of reverence. You're not necessarily seen as just human anymore. There's almost this grand way of looking at you. So when I talk about witches, again, I don't like the term witch. When I make the video, I'm probably going to reduce the number of times that I say witch, because it misconstrues whatever I'm going to be teaching. I might have to find a different name for it. Definitely not. Witch just has this. I mean, when you look up witch, like I was saying earlier, it tells you nothing. It has this Halloweeny thing to it. That's not who a witch is, especially a modern witch. So when I make the video, I'll talk about this further. I can already tell that I'm tired. I'm out of breath. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll be happy to respond. Please don't ask me. Don't ask me questions that obviously you know I can't know the answer except I'm a witch myself. Don't ask me difficult questions. Well, if you ask me, I would look for people to ask. I'm not saying that I have an abundance of witches in my contact list to ask, but I will try to find answers for you if I feel that it's an interesting question. Thank you for your support. Please continue to support my channel and continue to watch my videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day and goodbye.